Hi, my name is Happy, and I'm an autistic female-bodied human who is hosting this podcast, A World That Works for Everyone. The mission of our podcast is sustaining a world that works for everyone. And this episode 3, I'm going to focus on autistic sensory needs and specifically light sensitivity. So here we go. When I realized I was autistic, I started to realize all the sensory sensitivities and needs that I had. And the funny thing about autistic people is sometimes they don't know that they have sensory sensitivities. I can speak for myself. I wasn't aware that I had sensory sensitivities. I probably was just irritated all the time, and had a short temper. I imagine a lot of people who we might label as a-holes in the world may just be people who have neurodiverse or sensitivity needs that they're not taking care of and they're in a state of irritation. I don't know. That's a hypothesis. I think when I was acting out or behaving poorly, I think for me, I'm aware now that much of the time that's happening today, if it's happening to the degree that it is often because I'm not taking care of my sensory needs and I'm overwhelmed. So one of the ones that I think is particularly pronounced for me is my light sensitivity. So I remember when I was maybe 18 to 20 years old, I went to the eye doctor. And I've been, needing glasses since I was 8, so I've seen lots of eye doctors over the years, but this was the only one who mentioned this to me, and he was a very good doctor, and he was a very calm person. I kind of had the sense that he probably had Asperger's too. We geeked out on physics together, because at the time I was studying physics a little bit in school. I was taking a class, and anyway, he mentioned to me that my pupils are abnormally large. Now, I don't think that's necessarily part of my autism, but in combination with my autism, it's interesting. And he said that because my pupils are abnormally large and I have an astigmatism and I'm meant to wear these contacts that correct for that, that looking at white will be uncomfortable for me much of the time, like looking at the non-color that is white. That there's almost like a vibration, like when I look at white, and it's kind of like the same vibration that a lot of autistic people feel when it comes to overhead lights, and it's a bit overwhelming. Now, at the time, I was really overwhelmed, and I didn't even really take that information in until like 20 years later. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. That guy told me that one time. I also think I didn't take the information in because this guy was very kind and very good looking, and I think I was also feeling like romantical type feelings towards him, and I think when I'm having those kinds of feelings, I get confused in my brain, and I don't always take information in, so that's another part of my autism, I think. So anyway, in addition to that, I think I'm just overly sensitive to light in general, so like some of the accommodations I've made for myself today is that I basically stay indoors a lot of the bright time in the daytime. I live in a very bright city in a sunny place, and I actually almost always have. And it's a bit confusing for me because I used to say that I needed the sunlight and the bright sky and the blue sky and sunshine for my mood, because I would always, if it was gray and cloudy, I didn't feel like I ever really fully woke up, or like that I was in a good mood. If it was gray and cloudy for more than 3 days at a time where I live, I would get a little depressed. So it's a bit confusing. Like I do like blue skies, but also now that I know the light sensitivity, it's comfortable, and especially comfortable during the day. So like I'll do stuff early in the morning when it's still light, and I'll do stuff in the evening when it's golden hour, and I'll do stuff at night. And I do try to get some sunlight a bit per day for the vitamin D, but I don't go out much during the bright light. And my skin is quite sensitive to light too. Skin is sensitive to the sunlight. I can feel it almost burns, even for just a short period of time. So I tend to stay in shaded areas or make sure I have shade. if I am outside. And then I'll wear very dark sunglasses, and I often, when going out in the middle of the day, I wear these things called, what are they called? Welding glasses. So they are basically covered on the side, so that one of the things is that when you're driving or doing stuff, if light comes in the side of sunglasses, it can be really painful and create light blindness. And so I have that. They're blocked on the side, which helps in a lot of ways because I also don't see motion coming from the side. So that's pretty great in other ways. And yeah, so that's some of the things about the light sensitivity. And another thing that I wanted to bring up just in terms of this light sensitivity in connection with large pupils and the color white being uncomfortable, like when I think about it, paperwork has always been very difficult for me to do a lot of the time. And it's like bright white paper, appliances, like my dish, like I'm more likely to keep my stove dirty, my sink dirty, the bathtub, have a lot of products around it because just that much whiteness is painful for me to look at. So like I tend to clutter up those areas because it literally just makes more for more colors. So I don't have to stare at the whiteness of the porcelain or the appliance. So I'm aware now that there are stickers and non-white appliances that one can buy. There's pretty colors, more colorful things that one can do, more options today. And I'm aware that like that would be beneficial for me to get so that I actually don't. If I have a copper sink, it's more likely to stay clean than a white sink, you know? Setting my computer to dark mode for everything I could possibly do is really helpful. Dimming down the brightness on the phone as well. Paperwork, copying it in a light color, like a lavender color as opposed to bright white. When I do my journaling, I journal on dark paper with a light, like neon colored pen. These are all just some things I've learned. Also paperwork, doing it auditorily with a helper, like an aide or something. Like, so I just say what I need. And also sending emails via voice memo instead of typing them out as all things that have been good accommodations for me. But yeah, also like basically the whole world runs on white paper and screens that are bright white. And most institutions have bright white walls and bright lights. So it's a wonder that I've sort of stayed away from a lot of institutions and got out of like even institutions of higher learning, which might be intellectually interesting for me if there weren't windows. I noticed like some of the communities that I've involved myself with, they were either, you know, our meeting spaces, I realized in hindsight, had a lot of windows. Or they were meeting in churches where there were stained glass, you know, just like things that were naturally accommodating of me. And also just like if I think about historically, I think a lot of autistic people did end up becoming monks or nuns or priests. And if I think about that way of living and like monastic culture, you know, it's often kind of like going to the cave in the Himalayas or going to the woods, and the stained glass and muted lights and candlelight and darkness, and a lot of that makes a lot of sense to me. Yellowed parchment paper as opposed to bright white printer paper. So I just kind of think about living like the old world way, sending handwritten letters. Maybe I'll get an ink blotter and do it that way with a feather pen, you know, and just slowing everything down because the rapidness of this society doesn't make sense for me in pretty much every way. But my body is designed. So anyway, those are some thoughts for today. Thank you very much. Again, we're creating and sustaining a world that works for everyone, and I'm happy. Thank you.